this bad boy going here. Alright, folks, good morning, or afternoon, or night, wherever you are in the world. My name is Dagnome, and today we're going to be hosting another Dungeon Defenders 2 stream. Today what we're really going to be focusing on is explaining the different kind of characters for potential new players, people that might have questions on particular aspects of a character, that kind of thing. So I am going to kind of reiterate or repeat things that I've gone over in previous streams. But you know, it's all in good faith. We're trying to target my stream. I'm trying to target my streams here to kind of cover certain things at certain times. So, what we'll start off with, just again, I always start my Dungeon Defenders 2 streams with a little precursor, just saying that the game is still in pre-alpha. You can still tell from the watermark in the bottom right of the game. That means it is not anywhere near completion yet. They have a lot of work to do on it. They're going to be coming out with the Foundation 2, which is the next big kind of content injection. Should be coming up here in hopefully next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, near future. I've already covered in the past streams the basics of the game. If you've played any Dungeon Defenders 1, then you're already familiar with the game in general. So there's not much to cover. So today we're really just going to focus on characters, different towers, their abilities, things like that. So we're actually going to start with the one character I don't have in my deck. While we're on this screen, because we are covering characters again, Dungeon Defenders 2 has adapted a unique kind of character system. You can actually bring multiple characters into a mission. How that is done is through this thing called the hero deck, which you see over here. You can have up to 3 heroes in your hero deck at a time. They have to be obviously different levels. The most appropriate thing to do is have 3 characters of about the same level range. You want to be kind of in 2 to 3 levels of each other if you're going to put them in the deck. For example, you can see my Huntress is level 22, my Mage is 21, my Monk is 23. Those are like appropriate, it's an appropriate hero level deck to kind of combine together. Because to do certain missions you have to have every hero in your deck has to be a certain level. If they don't meet the level requirements, the minimum level requirement, then they're going to have to get removed from your hero deck in order for you to play that particular mission. So we're going to start with these 3 right here. We're going to start with the Mage, just kind of cover a little bit about him. I'm not going to go over stats too much, item stats or anything like that. That's going to be a little more of an in-depth on another stream. Right now we're just going to focus on really abilities and towers, just so you can kind of get a general idea of what each character kind of has to bring to the table in this new version of Dungeon Defenders. So we're starting with the Mage here. He has a few abilities that you can't activate at the moment, just because there's no actual enemies in here. His first ability is called Arcane Volley. What that ability does, actually let me see if I can actually just show you the explanations before I show you the actual moves themselves. Especially for like Arcane Volley, because I can't use that. So your first ability is Arcane Volley. That's your one ability. Basically, you can read the overview. They're kind of coming more descriptions are going to be coming down the road, a little bit more accurate as to what they do DPS-wise. I assume they're going to throw the stats of the abilities in there too, because your equipment will affect how much damage your abilities do. But this first ability is the Apprentice fires up 5 homing bolts at his marked enemies, dealing magical damage to each. So the unique thing about the Apprentice is he can mark enemies by using his primary and secondary attack abilities, so left and right mouse click. You'll see like a little icon above their head. Let me see if I can get these little guys over here marked. There we go. So you see that little icon above their head? I just marked them. So if we mark all 5 of these guys, and then we can use Arcane Volley, boop, it's going to hit up to 5 enemies that are marked. Now if I only mark like 1 enemy, it's only going to hit it with 1 bolt, so you can't concentrate all 5 of your bolts onto 1 enemy, which is kind of a downside to it. I wish you could have, I wish the 5 volleys spread out up to 5 targets, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers. So, Arcane Volley just one more time, we're going to mark up to 5 targets, Arcane Volley, boo, and it's going to do about 500 damage apiece. No, just keep in mind, none of my characters are built for DPS. I have not focused on the ability damage stat or anything like that. So let's move on. His next ability, which is your 2 ability, I'll go back up here so you can see the description of it. His next ability is called Tornado. Basically, what this is a decent crowd control ability. What you're going to do is actually, just like the overview says, you're going to launch a little tornado in whatever direction you're aiming, and it's actually going to lift enemies up and deal damage to them over time. Again, the apprentice's marking comes into effect when you're using his abilities. Because as you can see at the end of that overview, if you have an enemy marked and you hit them with tornado, they're going to take extra DPS while they're up in the air. So it's pretty substantial to mark all the enemies as often as you can when you are playing the apprentice, because it's going to increase your DPS output. We'll look at his next ability, the Mana Bomb. You're going to be very familiar with this if you played Dungeon Defenders 1. This was the mage's ultimate killing machine ability. Basically, he just charges up. It takes like 3 to 4 seconds for him to charge up, and then he just launches a huge AoE around him that does massive damage to anything that's near it. And again, deals extra damage to marked enemies. So you want to use your primary and secondary attacks to mark these guys before you go in there and use any of his abilities, because you're going to see a pretty substantial damage difference. Every character's 4th ability is heal. It's a self-heal. You have to stop moving. Can't get hit while you're using it, otherwise the cooldown will reset. So that's everyone's 4th ability. So what I'll do is I'm going to go down and just demonstrate his abilities again real quick. So we'll start again with the Arcane. So Arcane, we already used that. Boom, it's going to do that. Tornado. So as you can see, shoot a little tornado in the direction I'm going. Obviously, these training dummies are bolted to the floor, so they're not going to get lifted up and have like the consistent DPS like a regular monster would. And then we have his Mana Bomb. So you can see, I'll mark these guys. Actually, we'll use this bad boy. So it takes about 3 to 4 seconds for it to charge, and then you can see the amount of DPS that did. So it's a pretty substantial ability, a great ability for him to jump in, use that, get a lot of damage on the enemies, and then let your turrets finish them off. Now, as far as the mage's turrets go, turrets in general are pretty simple. Usually have 1 or 2 kind of damage dealing turrets. Some characters have a wall type turret, and the last one's usually some kind of crowd control. So for the mage, we have obviously the Flame Burst Tower, which is just a damage dealing, shoots fireballs at your enemies. You have the Arcane Barrier, which is like a wall. You build it up, enemies will bump into it, start hitting it, and that'll kind of stall them, so your damage dealing turrets can actually do some damage. Arcane Barriers are interesting because after 20% of the health is gone, it'll explode, dealing AoE damage to all the enemies in front of it, knocking them backwards, which is pretty interesting. It makes it a unique kind of barrier. Frostbite Tower, probably one of the most popular towers you're going to see mages putting down. It's a great crowd control ability. It slows down the target plus a little AoE around that target, so you can be slowing 5 enemies at a time with this tower. It's a really nice tower. It also takes reduced aggro, so enemies are gonna be less likely to attack Frostbite Tower over like a Cannon Tower or even a Flame Burst Tower. So that's pretty cool. His last ability, this is a straight up damage dealing type of tower. A little bit of a crowd control ability too. But basically, it's got a really long range on it. It's gonna every so often hit the ground, gonna shoot a projectile obviously at the enemy. Comes out of the ground, does magical damage in a small area. So it's a very high damage kind of ability. Again, when you're looking at your abilities, when you're looking at your towers, you can see at the bottom there's a cost associated with every single one. So you can see my 5 ability is the Flame Burst Tower, costs 40 mana. My Arcane Barriers are only 20. My Frostbite Towers are 40, and my Earth Shatters are 50. So you can kind of judge by how much it costs, how effective it's going to be. The mages are a little bit more powerful, or a little bit more costly than some of the other towers, because they are a little bit better as far as damage output and things like that. That's why you don't see mages very commonly played, I don't think. Right now, all of my character abilities, the blue ones, don't have a cost because I'm in the tavern. And this is an area where you can practice, check your DPS, things like that. So it's like a training area. So what I'm going to do is we're going to place a fire tower here first, so you can kind of see what this bad boy does. So you can see it just kind of sits there, shoots, does decent damage. I mean, you're talking about 500 damage. It's got a nice AoE damage too. So if this was shooting in a big crowd, it's going to damage a little bit of everything around it, which is very nice. So pretty straightforward. I'll sell that guy. The barriers are pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, it's not going to take a lot of damage right now, but that's what your arcane barriers are going to be. So let's say this was the line of enemies walking towards you. They're going to stop and attack this barrier first because it's right in their way. So your barrier placements are pretty important when you're trying to build up a defense, if you're going to be using barriers inside of that defense. Our next tower is going to be our ice tower. You can see what this guy does. So it shoots out a solid beam for a decent amount of time. It has to recharge. Sorry. So it's going to freeze all these guys around it. But again, obviously these are training dummies, so they're not going to get frozen or anything like that. It does a little bit of damage during that that shooting phase, but the crowd control ability is so much more important with this tower. And then we have this bad boy, the Earth Shatter Tower. So as you can see, what it's going to do, it's going to acquire a target and just hit him with a rock. So you can see how big the range is as far as the DPS aura. So it's going to do a lot of damage to these middle guys. You know, doing 300 and something damage for a level 1 turret definitely isn't that bad. If we were to upgrade this guy all the way, you're going to see that DPS increase substantially. So it about triples, quadruples, and then some once you get that thing upgraded to level 5. So that's a huge damage dealing tower right there. And look at the fire rate on it. That's a huge fire rate. That is very fast for such a really good tower. That's good English. Alright. So that is basically your monk's your apprentice's basic towers, basic abilities, without getting into anything like the stats or anything like that. So overall, the apprentice is a good character. One of the harder ones to use, in my opinion, to use effectively. Good for damage dealing. If you do a DPS build on a mage, then it's going to be pretty effective. Because his ability to mark and then use his hero abilities, he just has a lot of damage potential. So now what we're going to do, let's go over the monk. Actually, we'll do the monk last. We'll do the huntress now. So the huntress is definitely a more complicated hero to play, mainly because her turrets are not really, or her towers are not really turrets. They're more like traps. So you have to place them. They don't slow the enemies down at all. I mean, as far as like making them stop to attack you, the only one, she has one that does that, and that's the dart thrower. But we'll go over that here in a second. So let's start with her abilities. So her first ability is the concussive shots. You kind of saw this in the previous stream when I was using the monk and the huntress and the ramparts when I was doing that gear farming mission. But her concussive shots, what they do is it fires about 4 to 5 arrows, kind of in an arc in front of her. They'll land, explode, and what they're going to do is stun your enemies. Does a little bit of damage, but the biggest thing is the stunning. It stuns them for a decent amount of time. I think it's about anywhere between 3 to 5 seconds. So it's pretty substantial when you're having an issue, your turrets are getting overwhelmed. Being able to just stun them for that much time can give your turrets a huge edge in a fight. Her next one is Oil Flask. This is a really great ability too, because basically what you do is you throw out a flask in an area. Any monster that's in that area when the flask explodes is going to get basically greased up and slowed down. So it's another crowd control type ability. But kind of like what I've been touching on every stream so far is the combo system. Hero abilities can get tuned into that combo system as well. You know, her oil flask, if you have like a mage who's sitting down fire towers and you use the oil flask, as long as they're covered in that oil, they're going to take more damage. Similar to like her geyser trap, which we'll get to in a second, but if you use like a geyser trap and they walk into a monk's electric aura, they're going to take substantial more damage and get stunned because they're soaking wet. You know, it's kind of common sense. If you're covered in oil and you get lit on fire, you're going to take a lot more hurt because you're going to get lit ablaze. If you're soaking wet and get struck by lightning, you can kind of see where I'm going with that. Her next ability is the piercing shot. Very popular ability for the Huntress, when especially in Dungeon Defenders 1. Basically what this does is it will charge up for a few seconds. You can shoot it in any direction that you're facing, and it's going to go through all the enemies out to a certain range. Eventually, it'll just stop, but it's not going to get slowed down or stopped by any enemies. It's going to go right through them, which is pretty awesome. So you could use like even piercing shot in conjunction with your oil flask. So you slow them down, throw a piercing shot, and they're going to take extra DPS. Again, she's got the self heal as her fourth ability. Her traps. Her first one, her 4 ability or 5 ability is going to be Explosive Trap, a very popular thing with the Huntress. This is probably one of the most damage potential traps in the game, in my opinion. You can get these to do a substantial amount of damage to enemies, and they have a really nice AoE on there too. So that's pretty awesome. Her geyser traps, you've seen me use these before. Basically all they do is you put them on the ground, enemies walk over them, it's going to shoot up a geyser, and they're all going to get caught in it, get thrown up into the air for a second or two, and they're going to take substantially more electrocution or magical storm damage. So she works really good in conjunction with the monk, or even the mage. Her poison dart tower, pretty self-explanatory. It's a standard kind of turret, so the enemies can't attack it. But it's going to shoot rockets, or not rockets, little darts at them. It's going to poison them, so it's going to just do damage over time. So it's a dot tower. Not that popular. I haven't seen a whole lot of people use these, because her explosive traps just do a lot more damage, and the geyser traps are so much better with crowd control. So these two are her probably her most popular abilities. Last one is the Blaze Balloon. This is a very interesting trap. I've seen it do a lot of damage. The AoE that it affects when it does get popped is substantial. What I like about the Blaze Balloon too is you can actually manually trigger them. If you shoot the balloon that's up in the air waiting for enemies, you can kind of set it off ahead of enemies if you have a particular one you want to make sure gets caught in it. So it's pretty cool that you can do that. But let's go see how these guys look on the field. So her concussive shot, pretty simple. And a little trick that I like to explain is this is her regular range with it. But if we were to jump and use concussive shot, you're going to see a substantially bigger range. So I'm going to jump and use it. So you can see we hit all the way back here. You know, so we hit from here if we jumped. Whereas regularly we only hit about here. So I mean, it's not a huge increase, but it's very helpful to know that. If we use our flask, this is our oil flask, our 2 ability. Chuck it on these guys. So obviously these are just dummies, so they're not going to stay oiled. But that's what it will do, is it'll slow them down, cover them in oil. And then what you could do is you could follow up with your piercing shot. So if these guys were covered in that oil, it's going to do increased damage to them, the ones that are covered in the slick. But you can kind of see how piercing shot just went through all these guys. It only stopped when it hit the wall. But it's not going to get caught up on any enemies or anything like that. So, her little traps here, or turrets. One thing to really pay attention to is the aura, the range of these turrets. So you can kind of see that when I put this down, you see that blue ring around it. That's the range it's going to hit in. So if anybody walks into that, that's when it's going to explode. Also the damage range. So if we put it near this guy, what you're going to kind of see is it's probably not going to trigger because this guy's not moving. But auto aim. Alright, yeah, auto aim is going to kind of prevent this thing from going. But realistically, what would happen is if this guy was moving, because he's already inside the aura, it would automatically have blown up. But he walks inside, you know, this little aura right here, and it's going to damage him. Her next ability is the geyser traps. The geyser traps are something you want to place really well. Because good placement is important, especially on this type of thing, especially on their explosive traps too. You want to put it where the enemies are going to go, not where you think they're going to go. I mean, if it really helps you, they have the the purple lines at the beginning of a match, in between every round during the build phase, so you can kind of see where the enemy's going to generally walk towards. You want to put things in that path. Some of the smaller enemies will occasionally walk around obstacles if it's not attracting enough attention from the enemy. So you want to be pretty careful with the placement of your geyser traps and your explosive traps. And then you obviously have her poison dart turrets. So all these guys are going to do is they're just going to... I'll upgrade it all the way just for the heck of it. So you can see it's going to shoot. You know, it's got decent damage, about 600 damage per. It shoots out multiple projectiles. Let's see if I can get you a good angle on that. So it shoots, I think it's like 3 or 4 projectiles at a time. Yeah, so you see some of them are actually going around and hitting around the targets. But these are decent traps, really just support turrets. Don't try and use these as primary damaging turrets, because it's not really going to work. And then we have her little blaze turrets here. Maybe if I upgrade this guy, it'll go. No. Alright. Alright. So like I said, see, I'm going to get rid of that guy. Get rid of these guys. So, like I said, because these turrets are, these dummies aren't moving anywhere, I can't get these stationary stuff to trigger. But like I told you, is this one you can actually force it to trigger. If you shoot this balloon, you're going to see that huge, look at that AoE that thing covered. That was substantial. Of course, that was a fully upgraded one, so let's just kind of look at a smaller one. So this is a level 1 turret. This is not anything special. Your pretty basic blaze balloon turret. But even then, you could see, even in that small, with the level 1 turret, you got all of these guys incorporated into that damage. So that's pretty substantial. And it's not weak damage either. It's pretty good damage. I don't think it'll, yeah, I gotta wait for it's up. There you go. So you're talking a level 1 turret dealing, 80 damage per second. Second and a half, that's pretty huge. Especially when you're fighting low-level enemies. So that is the Huntress. She's one of the more difficult classes to play effectively, in my opinion. Especially if you're going to be building with her. Alright, let's go to the Monk here. The Monk is another one of those turret builders that's very difficult to be great with. It's very easy to just spam turrets in an area. Oh, that guy's still poisoned. It's very easy to just spam a bunch of turrets in an area and just upgrade them. That's what a lot of players will do, especially when they're farming items or things like that. So what we want to start with is the Monk's abilities. Not a lot of people use the Monk's hero abilities. They're not that great. His first one is Pole Smash. It's gonna basically, it's basically exactly what it says. He's gonna hit the ground. It's gonna launch the enemies that are within that range of it into the air, dealing some physical damage to them. This works well if they're frozen. So if you have a mage that has the ice turret down and they're frozen, the Pole Smash will actually deal extra damage to them, which is a pretty cool combo that you can do. His second ability is a Chi Blast. Basically, it's just a knockback. It's going to pierce through enemies, but it's just knock them back a little bit, do a little bit of damage. It's a good little kind of, if they're going around a turret or they're near an edge that they can fall off, you can push them off it. A little more effective on things like the ogres, not the ogres, the orcs, the big ones, or any really annoying units. His next ability is the Heroic Wave. It's just a healing. It's going to heal all nearby heroes that are inside of that AoE, and it's going to increase their damage a little bit of time. And obviously, again, the self-heal. His defenses. The Lightning Aura is a very popular one. You're going to see this a lot. What this is going to do is anyone that walks inside of the radius is going to start they're going to start taking damage. The thing with the Monk turrets, kind of like what I said before, is they don't actually stop enemies, really. So they're very passive, kind of aura-based damage dealers, so you got to be careful and keep that in mind, that enemies are going to walk right through this. They're not going to stop unless they die, or it runs out of durability. His Boost Aura is probably another one you're going to see a lot. The Boost Aura is going to reduce damage taken by turrets and increase the damage dealt. So it's just what it says. It boosts all your turrets within the radius of that aura. The more turrets you have inside of the Boost Aura's field of effectiveness, the faster its durability is going to run out. So that's one thing to keep in mind too. If you have like 15 turrets inside of the Boost Aura, you're going to drain the durability extremely fast on this Boost Aura. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. His next one is a Serenity Aura. It's not one of the best auras, I don't think. It's a healing aura, or healing tower, if you want to think about it that way. It's going to reduce the damage for heroes taken that are inside the aura, and also heal every second. So if you have I would say the only time I'd actually see this used is if you had a strictly DPS character that was focused on ability damage and hero health and things like that, and they wanted a lane to just cover a lane, pop a Serenity Aura in their lane so they have a place to fight where they're going to heal and take less damage. So that would be a really strong use for that. Your Skyguard towers. The monk is probably the only character as of now. They are coming out with more characters that has a strictly anti-air turret. The Skyguard tower only attacks air enemies, but it fires faster. For every air enemy that's near it, it's going to fire multiple projectiles to it. So it can, I think it can hit up to 3 enemies at once. And when you have a match when there's only 4 or 5 or 6 air enemies coming at you from a lane, that's going to hit all of, half of them at the same time. So the Skyguard towers are nice, especially when you're on an air-heavy map, which I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of them in the future. Whew. Sorry, I'm trying to drink my coffee and have a little fun here. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with the Monk's heroic abilities. So our one ability, the Polearm Smash. See that? Just very simple, very quick. It's a good way to kind of deter enemies for a second, but it's not super effective. His Chi Blast, we're going to try and use it on these guys. Boop. So as you can see, it went through all of them, did a little bit of damage, nothing really noteworthy, but it's going to push them all back. Again, these dummies are bolted to the floor, so you can't really effectively see how it pushes them back. But that's the basic concept of that. His third one, the Healing or Heroic Aura. So very small aura. It's really not substantial at all. You rarely see a monk running around the field healing people or giving them that aura, just because the recharge timer is like 10 seconds on it. It takes up a decent amount of heroic mana, so you really want to be very careful with that. So now we get onto his turrets. The Lightning Aura turret, which we'll just put that one right there. So as you can see, it's just going to keep doing damage. In a regular game, you're going to see that 100%. As it does damage to enemies, it's going to slowly decrease down to like 99, 98. It's going to kind of slowly creep down on you. So when you are playing with the monk and you're building turrets, you really need to make sure you check all of your turrets, all of your auras before you start the combat phase. Because you don't want to start a combat phase with a tier 3 lightning aura that's at 10% durability because you haven't been keeping tabs on it, because it's going to quickly get destroyed. And trying to rebuild your towers in the middle of a combat phase you're probably not going to succeed very much in doing that. So that's the lightning aura, pretty straightforward. Your boosting aura, one thing that probably is the only useful use of E is what you can do is you can actually inspect your turrets to see the damage and things like that. The boost auras are important because if, let's say, and this is actually a pretty common build you're going to see with the monks, is what people will do is they'll build one lightning aura there, another one behind it, and what they'll want to do is get both of these encompassed inside your boost aura. So obviously you can see the radius, but sometimes people get a little, they just don't pay attention or whatever, and they might pull something like that. They think it's inside of it, it's not, but that's when you can inspect it, and you can see the defense is buffed, and you see it says 1. I wanted to get 2 of them. So obviously that means I have to sell it and just kind of replace it. So you see now it says 2. What I would recommend is if you're trying to get something inside your buff and you don't know if it's going to hit it or not, look at this turret, this lightning turret on the left here. Try to get it so it's at least halfway through the turret like that, because that way it's actually going to hit it. If you kind of go on it's less than half of it is covered, it's probably not going to get caught inside that boost aura. So you're basically going to be wasting your boost aura. So definitely something you want to pay attention to. Your little healing aura here, or healing turret. Oh, I kind of sold it. I just like upgrading them to the highest levels. You can see what they look like. So it has a pretty substantial AoE once you get them fully upgraded. So this is like if you had a squire that was DPS or a mage or something, this would be a great battlefield for him to fight in. Because he's got the healing, the constant healing, the damage reduction, and things like that. So this has uses, just not very practical at the moment. And then you have your Skyguard turrets here. So that's what it looks like fully upgraded. You can see it has the 3 barrels on it. They're kind of searching around for air units. We don't have any training air units, which I really think we should. They kind of have to upgrade. They need to have a moving dummy, so you can actually test things like the explosive traps, or some kind of flying dummy. What they probably should do is you set up right up here on the wall. It's like a back, like when you go to the carnival and you have the little duck game where you shoot the ducks with the guns and they're on the little track and just kind of keep going. They should have something like that for training. So you could see like the DPS of this. Just have a little box up here with flying dummies in it, and they just keep going. But they'll register as air targets, so something like this could hit them, and you can actually check the DPS on it. But that's my 2 cents. Alright, now we're going to check my favorite hero, by far. The Squire. The Squire is probably one of the coolest characters, in my opinion. He's like the goofiest. He's wearing a tank top with hearts on it. I'm sure he's got an I Love Mom tattoo somewhere around there. Let's take a look at his info. So his abilities. First one's his Sword Beam. It's going to be another piercing attack, so it's not going to get stopped when it hits an enemy. It's going to go through them, but the thing with this one is as the further the enemies it hits, it's going to deal less and less damage as it goes through enemies. So it's not going to be a super kill everything in sight in one line kind of thing. The Huntress's piercing shot is definitely a much better piercing attack than the Sword Beam is, but it's good for hitting air units and things like that. His next one is Provoke. Oops, sorry. So, obviously Provoke, and he's a knight, so he's meant to be a tank. Provoke is just that. It's a taunting ability. So, any monster caught in the aura, or the area of effect of Provoke, it's going to get, you'll see little, like, angry marks up here above them. They're going to attack the knight. He's going to do more damage, he's going to go faster, and he's going to take reduced damage while they're provoked. So it's a nice little way to kind of draw it. Like if you had a harder enemy coming in, or like a group of harder enemies, what you could do is provoke them, draw them away a little bit from the big group of enemies to kind of give your turrets a chance to take them out. Take all the smaller stuff out, and then just focus their damage on the big guys. His next one's Seismic Slam. This is probably one of the most important abilities for a Squire. What it is he slams the ground, an AoE area will get damaged, and they're going to get stunned. That's really nice because you can stun an entire group of enemies that are caught in that AoE. So what I usually will like to use this for is if I am, let's say I'm fighting in front of my turrets, and I have 200 enemies coming in one area, between like 2 lanes or 2 spawn points. Wait till the massive group of enemies comes right in front of your turrets, or even wait for them to start attacking them, and then you pop your Seismic Slam inside that big group of enemies. They'll all be stunned for, it's like 2 or 3 seconds, but your turrets have that opportunity to really do some serious damage, or kill a lot of those smaller guys. Again, self-heal. Now, his defenses don't really have a whole lot to describe with them. His are very straightforward. Not a whole lot of combinations to be done. His first one, and if you play DD1, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. His cannonball turrets. These are probably one of the coolest turrets in the game. They have one of the higher DPS potentials. As you can see, they're gonna just keep shooting. They have a little bit of area damage, very little bit. Well, more like an area stun kind of thing. But they're really nice if you put a lot of them together, and this is probably the most effective use of cannonball turrets. You put 3 or 4 of them together. I'm going to sell this upgraded one here. But we put like 3 or 4 of them together, and you can kind of see just how much damage it's going to do. You want to try and line them up so they're actually like parallel with each other, so that way as soon as an enemy comes in range, they're all going to hit it at the same time and just kind of one-shot it. Because you can imagine 4 of these guys that are, even like tier 3, are going to be doing a lot of damage. That's 1,600 damage a pop, times 4, you're looking at, about 6,000 damage, which is going to kill most enemies. So, cannonball turrets are very nice. This is his blockade type turret. It's, the shield wall. Again, placement's very important if you are going to use these effectively. These are nice because you can actually get them to do a little bit of return damage, a little bit of return stun with these walls. What you'll see a lot of players do is they'll obviously pop your wall, pop maybe 1 or 2 cannons on it, and then what they're going to do is use this next turret, which is this big crossbow looking thing. And what this guy is going to do is going to pierce. It's a piercing tower. So it's going to shoot at the enemy in front, but at anybody behind it, it's going to take damage as well. So you can see right here, you have a very effective setup. A lot of damage coming out right here, a lot of AoE kind of damage, and you have a little bit of protection too for your turrets. So the Knight's a very DPS oriented character. typically in lieu of a uh, shield wall, a spike wall like that, what I'll use is his 8 ability if I have to, which is this guy right here. It works just as well as a wall as your traditional 6 ability does. It costs 10 mana less, which is why I like it. But let me just show you a similar ability, a similar setup with your. So you got all these guys. Here's your wall. So this enemy, let's say this was an enemy, he's gonna come walking in. These are a little bit more annoying than I thought they were gonna be. So he's gonna come walking in, and you're already seeing it right here. If an enemy attacks this, what's gonna happen if I'd stop attacking? There you go. So as you can see, he's starting to spin around a little bit. And as he gets hit more and more, he's going to spin faster and faster and faster. And he's just going to start doing AoE damage to everything around it. So it's a little bit more of a effective wall in my opinion. I mean, even at level 1, this guy is 6,000 HP. This guy is almost 5,000, a little over 4K. So I mean, there's a pretty substantial difference. It's not meant to be a traditional wall. But I just like it because the damage output is just awesome. We upgrade him. It kind of looks like the Squire a little bit, which I think is just so cute. But I mean, look at that DPS right there. 2,604 damage. Just for a wall. With actually a pretty decent AoE on it, too. So that is the Squire, the Monk, your Huntress, and your Apprentice. So this stream, again, this was really just kind of focusing on a brief kind of explanation of each character, their abilities, their turrets, just so you can kind of have an idea of when you are going into the game, kind of what you want to work with. You know, maybe pick a character you like from this stream and just kind of go in and roll with it. So that's all for now. I'm going to take a quick break and then I'm going to be back. We're going to be looking into some other stuff, kind of taking it one step further, and we will go from there, guys. So we will be right back. Thank you for watching, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Alright, we are back. So I'm just looking at the viewers list real quick. Zaxxon82, welcome to the stream. Sorry if I missed you coming in. I was kind of in the middle of explaining some stuff. But if you have any questions, you know, feel free to hit me up. You know, even if it's something I already covered, I have no problem repeating myself. That is totally fine. Just trying to get my coffee all set up here. Alright. So, what we're going to cover now, because again, this stream is really going to be focused on newer player type of questions, basics, very, very basic kind of stuff. Um, Now we're going to start getting into some of this a little bit more complicated, taking things like, now that you have knowledge of the abilities, the towers, things like that, we're going to kind of take it one step forward, and start talking about character stats and how they come into play when you are building a character, when you're building turrets, things like that. So your Defender's Forge is going to be your hub for everything character-wise. Your inventory, hero deck, stats, specs, everything like that. Dungeon Defenders 2 has introduced a spec system, as opposed to your items being very definitive of what kind of character you're going to play. The spec system is very similar to like Diablo 3 type of thing, where you can basically put points into increasing certain aspects of your character. The Squire, for example, because he's a very DPS, creature fighting oriented type character, he has a lot of abilities that will be defense related. You know, Ripazay, for example, I really forget how to say that word, but what it's going to do is, you can see I have 36 points available. So with this particular ability, right now, those numbers you see in yellow are going to be reflective of how many points you have put into that particular spec. So right now I have no points in it, so I have a 0% chance. But as you see, when I start putting points into this thing, it'll actually tell you, because now that I have my cursor down here, you can see the numbers, the green numbers come into play. That's going to tell you how much it's going to add for, you know, the point that I put into it. So here I have 0. If I put a point into it, that's going to add 3.65% chance, and then it's going to be, the return damage is going to be equal to 3.01%. Because what this ability does is, every time an enemy hits you, it's going to grant you a certain percentage of a chance to return a percentage of your hero's actual damage to that enemy. So basically, it's almost like a, you know, a Shield of Thorns. So we'll put a point into it, and then you can see it's going to increase it again by 3.54%, 3.43%. So as you can see that the number, or the amount it gets increased, decreases with the more points you put into it. So you have to put a substantial amount of points into a spec to get it to a really high level. So even if I put with 36 points into it, that's only going to give me a 50% chance to return damage, and that's only going to be of 40% of my total hero damage is going to get returned to them. Half the time I'm going to return 40% of my hero damage to them. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're getting hit by, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 enemies at a time, that 50% adds up pretty quick. But, you know, the downside to getting such a high percentage is I've wasted all my points. So I hit this respec button here. It's going to give me all my points back, take everything away, so I can kind of start fresh. This is going to allow you, right now, I think they're talking about potentially making it cost money, cost gold to respec. But that really depends how the community uses or abuses this free respecking. Remember what they said on the DevStream 10 that they just had last Friday. You know, if they're finding out numbers-wise that users are respecking in between every round, doing certain things every round, respecking every round, they're going to make it start costing gold to respec. Because that just kind of takes the fun out of it when you're specifically respecking for a particular purpose, as opposed to like just a overall character, like a DPS, a tower building character, or something like that. So he has a multitude of abilities. Vengeance, 0%, obviously a percentage of the damage taken by Spike Blockade is going to get returned on its next attack. Shiny Spikes, percent chance for Spike Blockade to stun the enemies for X seconds. Fight Me Not. Defenses, this is a good one too, especially if you're going to be using him as more of a DPS kind of creature fighting character. This is going to actually take the defenses, the turrets, are going to do increased damage to any enemies targeting the Squire. So, before we were talking about his ability to provoke the enemies, make them attack him. If you get those powerful enemies provoked, and then you have a lot of points in Fight Me Not, you can see how that's going to combo together. And the turrets are going to do increased damage to those enemies that are trying to attack the Squire. Powerful Spears. It's going to increase the chance for the arrow to actually do full damage to all the enemies pierced for the next 4 seconds. So similar to like your other abilities that have piercing that do less damage as they go through enemies, this is going to kind of try and nullify that with that particular tower. Shield strength, just going to increase the damage reduction of the shield block by 0% or X%, depending on how many points you put into it. What they're talking about there is this, the Squire only has one attack. He only has his little sword swing. As opposed to having like a ranged attack or something as a secondary, his secondary is a shield block. So he can tank, essentially, enemy blows. Heavier enemies will do a lot less damage to him. Obviously, you can see my movement speed has increased substantially, you know, when I am blocking, and that's for obvious reasons. So I can't run super fast, block everything, you know, and be Mega Man over here. So I'll go to the Huntress now, just look at her specs real quick. So everybody has particular... I won't go through every character and go through every spec, because there's a lot to take into consideration when you're deciding what to spec into. It really depends on what kind of character you're trying to build. Are you going to be focusing on tower building? Are you going to be focusing on DPS? Are you going to be hybrid, you know, kind of go right down the middle, be a tower builder and a DPSer? You know, you're going to kind of take those things into consideration when you're looking at your specs. Stats are really what we're going to focus on right now. So stats are going to play a huge role in not only defining what your character is, but also how you're going to play them. So obviously, if I had a character that I want him to be a tower builder. You know, we'll just say, let's say I want to make my Huntress a tower builder. I am not going to focus my items, because all of your ability, all your stats come from your items. I'm not going to focus on getting items or leveling up items that have, let's say, ability damage or hero damage. Because if I want her to build turrets and have her turrets do as much damage as possible, I'm going to want items that are going to complement that kind of playstyle. So when you're looking for a turret building type character, your stats that you're going to want to focus on are these ones right here. A lot of your rook items, you know, rook's handguard, rook's shield, rook's bow, whatever, anything with a rook is typically more tower oriented. Why they chose rook kind of makes sense, because, you know, chess piece, a rook looks like a tower, so it kind of makes sense. But let's kind of break down into what the tower stats are specifically. So this one is your defense health. Pretty self-explanatory. The more points you have in defense health, the more turrets placed by that character are going to have increased health. How that kind of works with your Huntress is, at least this is how it worked in DD1, was the more tower health, defense health you had, the more charges her bombs would have, or her explosives would have. I don't think that's how it works anymore. I haven't really tested that. But in general, the more health you have for a turret, the long survivability is going to be, especially for things like blockades, your arcane barriers from the Apprentice, your spike shields, or your spike walls from the Squire. You're going to want a decent amount of health if you want to focus on that kind of build. Your next tower stat is going to be defense power. Pretty self-explanatory, and the way they do the icons, I like how they do that, because it kind of helps you understand, you know, just by looking at the icon, what it does. So you can see defense health, obviously there's a little health thing above it, and the tower, so it's like tower gets more health. Okay, this one, tower, sword, damage, towers do more damage. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, this is a huge stat if you're going to be focusing on tower building. Because if your towers ain't doing enough DPS, when you get into things like hard mode, your incursions, which are like, you know, uber hard modes, if you're not doing enough damage with your towers, and you know, truth be told, your towers are going to do more damage than any one hero ever could. Just because there's more of them, they shoot faster, have AoEs, you know, things like that. They can just do more than you can. So towers are always going to be an important thing to take into consideration. But your defense power is going to increase the damage done by your towers, by traps, by anything that hero places. Defense speed. Pretty common. Basically, I really wish they would kind of change the name of it, because defense speed is kind of... I think people could easily misinterpret what defense speed actually means. They mean like, oh, is it, you know, faster? I mean, obviously it's faster in some way, but it's more like reload speed. That's the way I like to look at it. So obviously the more defense speed you have, the faster something's going to fire, or the faster it's going to reset. If it's like a trap, like her explosive traps or geyser traps, the faster it's going to reset and be able to get tripped again. So defense speed's pretty important. in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the DD2 community agrees with me, these are probably two of your most important stats right here. I would say power's first, speed is secondary. So what's great about the item system in this game is it's not like I can just go to the shopkeeper and buy items that are specific to those stats, or even finding items that have the stats you want to kind of perfect your character's build is what makes this game so, like, loot grindy, because you find a lot of items with a lot of different stats on them, but to get the items you want with the stats you want, that's what makes this game challenging from a loot grinding standpoint. So those are your three basic tower stats that you really have to focus on. I just like looking at it, spice it up a little bit. So now what we're going to do, we're going to look at the hero stats, because appropriately my squire is more of a hero stat kind of guy. So, your health. Pretty obvious, hero health. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is how much health you have. The squire obviously has a lot more health than Huntress does, or the mage does, or the monk does, because he is built for sustainability in a fight. So that's just going to tell you what it is. And kind of while I'm doing that, I said a lot of things about how your items affect your stats and things like that. Down here, you can kind of see how that's broken down. So as you can see, I'll go to something that's a little bit more. So like my defense power. Okay, right now, my base is 418. Base is basically just what your character's stat is in that particular, his base stat is, without any add-ons, without any items or anything like that incorporated into it. And it varies between characters, so everyone's going to have different type of base stats. Just like in any RPG, your rogue is not going to have as much strength as your warrior type class. Items. What this is going to tell you is all the defense power I get from my items that I have currently equipped on this guy, which is, all this fun stuff down here. You're going to see that reflected in his items category. So I have 418 base with 233 defense power just from items. So that's going to total to 651. You can see the spec here. The spec is going to come from your spec points. So, if I had... Of course, none of these specs really kind of reflect that. But let me just put something into here. We'll just do that one. See if that'll change it at all. Okay, so your spec, I don't know if that's going to be specs or if that's a category for like specialty or item or pet or anything like that. But right now, this and gambits, gambits are negative things. Again, this is only Foundation 1, so they do not have everything in the game yet. They have very little in the game. It's very bare bones, pre-alpha again. So I'm sure we're going to see these two categories come into play significantly in the future, especially this gambits. I'm very interested in this gambit category, and to how that's going to come into play item wise or whatever from your guy. And then obviously your total. So after all these are all calculated, that's your total, and you see it reflected up here. So hero health, we already kind of went over that. Your hero damage, this is how much damage I'm going to do with my primary and secondary attacks. So obviously the more damage I have here, the more damage I'm going to do. Physical resist and your magic resist. These are, if you're trying to build a DPS type character, these are something you're going to want to take into consideration, because this is going to incorporate a lot into his survivability when he is jumping into a mob of monsters and trying to kill them. You could have the most damage in the world, the most health, but if you have no resistances, you're going to get squished pretty easy. I would rather have higher resistances than health. That would be my big thing. More resistances are always going to be better than more health, because health is easy to get through. You can burn through your health very quickly, and so can the enemies. This last category here, when it comes to hero, DPS build, things like that, is your ability power. Ability power is a stat that is going to affect the amount of damage your hero abilities will do. So, for example, he has his, sword beam. If I had a much higher ability power, then sword beam is going to do more damage. Pretty common. So that's the big difference between hero damage and ability power. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind when you are looking at your stats, items, and things like that. So that was just a quick kind of overviewing the stats, how they're going to incorporate in your tower, your character builds, things like that, just so you have a nice head start. When this game does get a little bit more developed, maybe you want to jump into the game with making a squire, a DPS squire. I personally like tower building squires, simply because their towers are much more durable than some of the other ones. But monks are good for that as well. So now that we kind of covered all that, um, what we're going to do is, again, I'm just going to take a quick break here, just kind of figure out what we're going to talk about next, go over some things. So we'll be right back here in a minute or so. And again, if you do have any questions, anybody that, any of the viewers, just go ahead and throw them in the chat. When I come back, I'll definitely happy to answer them. So I'll be right back here in a minute, guys. Alright, we are back. Got me some water. My throat was starting to get really dry from just kind of yammering and talking, so coffee's not really good for quenching the thirst. Alright, so it looks like we got a few more viewers. Bloodraven21, Krath88, Waxman09, Zaxxon, you're still here from what it looks like. Just welcome to the stream, guys. Sorry if I kind of jumping in and out on you. What we're doing here, this is just a very kind of traditional, basic kind of new player stream. So I'm just covering the basics of Dungeon Defenders 2. What we've covered so far up to this point, we went over each character, their abilities, their turrets. We went the Apprentice, the Monk, the Squire, and the Huntress. What I just covered was the stats, how they kind of come into play when you are playing the game, what stats to kind of work on if you're going for a particular build, which I think you guys were here for that. What we're going to cover now is some kind of basic formations, some good things to keep in mind, especially we're going to talk a little bit about the combo system, how that's going to come into play when you are playing Dungeon Defenders 2. So what I did here is this is just a free play mode. After you get level 20, you can do a free play mode, so you basically pick any map. It's a little bit more difficult than your campaign mode. But we're going to use the Ramparts. Is nice because it's open, so I can show you different turret builds and things like that that you can use, and things like that. So right now, what we're going to do, and these are the purple lines that I was referring to before, if you were here for that, and have never seen them before. What these purple lines are going to tell you is the general movement of a lane. Now, when we refer to lane, that just refers to where creatures spawn and where they walk towards the objectives. So this is going to be a very general idea of where they're going to walk. It's not exact, so if you were to place a barrier or something like a spike wall or an arcane barrier, you want to try and get it to cover as much of the area as possible. Because if you set it, let's say you were setting an arcane barrier right there, they're going to walk right around it. It's not going to draw enough attention for them to stop and actually engage it. So while I have the monk out, when you're playing the monk, you're going to see like I started to talk about before, a very popular build for the monk. That you'll see a lot in game is what people do is they'll take the monk, go close to where the enemies are going to spawn. They're going to drop a lightning aura right there. You're going to drop a boost turret. And again, remember, make sure when you're dropping these boost auras, make sure you get them on at least over half of the turrets you want to get affected. So we're going to pop that guy down right there. And what they'll do is drop another lightning aura inside of that boost aura. So now you can kind of see these guys right here. The reason they spread them out like that is because as you upgrade these lightning turrets, the radiuses are going to get bigger and bigger. So if you were to put this guy, let's say you were to hypothetically put him right as close as you possibly can to the spawn point, you're going to waste a lot of potential damage, because this aura is going to go inside of their little protected area, and they can't take damage inside of here. Even your ranged abilities, nothing can break that barrier. So you want to keep that in mind when you're building your defenses. You don't want your ranges for even like your range turrets, you don't want them to be going inside that barrier. You want to get them as they come out, so that way you can get the full damage possible from every turret you place. So that's the monk. Like I said, his turret and playstyle is a little bit different than what you might be used to. So we're going to use this big open area to kind of go over some of the turret combos and things like that. So like I mentioned before, the Huntress and the Monk can have some pretty good combinations that go on. So this is the Monk's Lightning Aura turret. And if I come over here and grab my Huntress, and again guys, if you have any questions or comments or anything about Dungeon Defenders 2, my stream, what I'm playing next, anything like that, feel free to let me know. I am looking at my chat on my other monitor, so I can definitely answer your questions as soon as you pop them up. So this Lightning Aura turret, and this is her Geyser Trap. This is some, as you can see, I can't put it in like really inside of the Lightning Aura. It's got to be a little bit on the outside, and that kind of cuts in that half rule. So you can kind of see you have to be about 70%, has to be at least, or I should say at least 30% has to be at least outside of it. But we pop that guy right there. So how this would work hypothetically is, let's say I'm a monster. I'm going to be walking, roll, I'm going to go kill your power cores. And then I'm going to hit this trap, it's going to shoot me into the air, get me soaking wet, and then once I land, I'm going to keep walking. And then this Lightning Aura turret is now going to start shocking me. But because I'm covered in water, what happens when you electrocute something covered in water? Takes more damage, gets shocked, that kind of thing. So that's a good example of a decent combo that the Huntress and the Monk can kind of put together. What we're going to go over next is, well, I don't have my apprentice. This is kind of how they kind of were meshed together. In my opinion, your monk and your huntress are the best at creating combinations together. Your apprentice and your squire are two really good comboing characters. What I'm going to do is actually head back to the tavern here. Just so I can pull out my apprentice and show you kind of what I'm talking about. Or just go to the social tavern for this, it's fine. Again, your social tavern this is your general hub. When you first get in the game, this is where you're going to be. This is everyone that's currently in the social tavern, so you can see a lot of people hanging out here. So, this is everybody here. They're just hanging out, waiting for their buddies to sign on so they can go play private matches. They can play matchmaking. This is your hub for everything. They're kind of going to be putting in a way to view other players, view their gear, view what they have equipped, things like that, their stats. So, let's say I'm trying to, explain to somebody, well, this is my ability, or this is my items, and this is how they kind of boost my guy. You'll be able to just look at my stats without me having to explain every number to you. Or in that way you can actually just look at random people. Like, let's say you look at a weapon, and you're like, that looks really cool. I can just look at that weapon, look at the abilities, and be like, alright, I want that one. So it gives you something to work for. So what we'll do... Get rid of monk, take out my apprentice. Whoop. Nope, I want my apprentice, thank you. Alright, so this guy... Alright, so what I like doing when I'm playing, having an apprentice kind of squire combo, and this is probably my... The one you just saw with the Huntress and the Monk is probably one of my first go-to combo damage dealing characters. This is a very great secondary. It's much better for kind of tighter maps that only have like a very few choke points that you can really concentrate a lot of enemies into. What you're going to do here... And actually, we'll start with the Squire, because I usually will take my generic turret builder. You know, it's either going to typically be the Monk or the Squire. You want to place your foundation turrets first and your support turrets after. And by that, what I mean is, you know, for example, your damage dealing turrets, you want to get those out first, because that's going to set up your defense, set up your base for your defense, your funneling system, things like that. So I'm going to take this guy right here. What we're going to do, and this, let's say this is a choke point, and I'm going to have monsters. Let's say they're coming out of this guy's little creation over here. So they're going to be, imagine like a purple line going down the middle here. What I'll do is I'll take 1 cannonball turret, 2 cannonball turrets, 3 cannonball turrets, 4 cannonball turrets, something like that. Put 3 or 4 down. You usually don't go with 5 unless it's a huge, area. So as you can see, if you hold down Shift, it's going to show you the firing pattern for every turret near you that you own, or that your allies have placed. As you can see, if I get like too far away from them, you can see like how my cannonballs don't show anymore, but if I get close to them again, you're going to see that. So it's good to check to make sure you have really good overlapping fields of fire. It's just like in the military, you want to make sure everybody's covered. Every lane, everybody can fire at the same person, that kind of thing. That way, if one enemy walks right down the middle, right here, all those are going to hit him at the same time. So that's going to be a lot of DPS going out at once, which is huge. I'm going to just go grab my apprentice here. And you can kind of probably already tell where this combo is going. It's pretty Hey, I said apprentice. But you can already kind of see where this is going. It's pretty much common sense. If you played any kind of tower defense game before, you're going to want to know... Sell this guy's stuff, because they're eating away all my building capability. So, what you want to do is put like an ice turret down behind these guys. Reason being is because you can kind of already say, that ice turret, what it does. It's going to slow down a group of enemies substantially. It potentially even freezing them if you put spec points into that. So as the enemy comes up here, that ice turret is going to start hitting him and his buddies, slowing them down. And now all my cannonball turrets have to do is just DPS. Just shoot, shoot, shoot. And they get a lot of extra time to do that because of that ice tower. So this is a really good combination, especially for newer players that haven't quite learned the ins and outs of every single turret, how they combo together and things like that. The Monk and the Huntress one that I showed you, and this one, this is probably one of the better ones because you can do it at a much earlier level. Because you're probably only going to be leveling up 2, maybe 3 guys at a time. At the start, you'll probably pick 3 and just kind of level them all up together. I would recommend grabbing the Monk, the Squire, and the Apprentice. Great team, great comboing capabilities, and things like that. So those are probably the 2 best combos that I would recommend. If you do spec into the ice turrets, which I'll show you what the spec actually does. So we'll go to specs. So this is freeze. So this is your apprentice. This is the spec points that we were talking about. Freeze is a good one. That and double fireball, because these are going to be 2 of your bigger damage dealing crowd control type towers. Freeze is nice because as you put more points into it, again, that yellow number goes up. So even with, let's say I put 34 points into it, it has a 66% chance that Frostbite Tower will freeze the target at the end of its channel for 3 seconds. So basically, during its reload time, the target that it was hitting is going to get frozen solid. And with the cannonball turrets, If the target gets frozen, they're going to do extra damage to it because frozen targets take extra physical damage, or explosive damage, which again, that's the combo system coming into play. I really like the combo system. One of the huge advantages of the combo system is the fact that when you do a successful combo, or you do a specific feat, like, kill 15 enemies in a certain amount of time, a few seconds, that kind of thing, you're going to get extra experience and extra gold right on the spot. So that a lot of players, what you'll see, and this is kind of a DD1 kind of thing, is you'll have one player build your entire defense. The kind of problem with that, not only is, I mean, it's good if you're doing a harder mission, but it's a lot of wasted potential. Because they can't, at most they can have 3 characters out, so they can only build three kinds of turrets. So you're gonna miss a whole set of combos potentially you could do depending on what characters they have. And not to mention that the combos only apply to people that own the towers. So you want to make sure that you're getting in on that comboing. Whether you're the Huntress, you build the geyser traps, and then the monk builds the lightning traps. You kind of want to be able to get in that combo cycle so you can get some extra gold, extra experience, that kind of thing. That's really the fastest way to level, is get those combos, do those feats, kill 15 enemies, kill X, repair X turrets in between phases, sell X turrets, upgrade X turrets, that kind of thing. So there's definitely a lot of potential, a lot of leveling gold gain potential, if you kind of know what you're doing. But really, as you play the campaign mode, experiment. That's the biggest thing I could tell you. Campaign mode's pretty easy, especially the earlier missions. Experiment with your towers. You won't have a whole lot of towers open to you at the start. As you level your guy, I think you have to get up to 16 or 18 before you have everything available to you. Your most powerful turrets won't, and your most powerful abilities you won't get till your higher level. But experimenting with those is a huge thing. That's what the social tavern's good for. That's what just kind of doing the free play mode is good for, or even the low level campaign modes. So it's definitely worth it to get involved with experimenting, because you might find combinations that you just like, or different builds that you just like. And you'll know them right off the bat. So you can choose your hero deck depending on what mission you're going into, a map you've played before. You can pick a good hero deck for it and be able to just destroy that mission. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to pick my favorite hero deck. Get rid of him, pick up my monk. There we go. And I'm actually going to go run a mission now. So we're going to do free play 20+. I personally like doing private games just because I don't really need anybody at this point. I'm not doing incursions. Incursions you want to have a group for, because incursions are the hardest, right now, the hardest play mode in the Defenders 2. So I'm actually going to go back to ramparts here. There we go. Whoop. Loading. Bickerby381, welcome to the stream. Sorry if I missed you coming in. Alright, so now we're here at the ramparts. I'm gonna build us some good turret defense. Alright. Again, I can check that, make sure I got 2. Fantastic. How are we doing today, Bick? Bickoby. I don't really like the positioning of that. We're gonna move that guy right there. Big boy. Big boy. Big boy. Well, I say it's B-I-C, so I was assuming it was Big Boy. But anyway, have you played do you have Dungeon Defenders 2, or are you just kind of snooping around, just checking it out, that kind of thing? Because I am certainly able to answer questions if you have any, if you have never played the game before. It's kind of what this whole stream's about. And we'll go with the Huntress. Get some combo action going on. Yeah, fantastic. I love this game. I'd rather play this over Evolve right now. Evolve's really got to patch their game. Because it's getting ridiculous at this point. Woo! Go there. And you can go there. Now go get my squire. We'll build some cannonballs. Oh, wait, I always forget that. Why? You don't like Evolve? Nothing wrong with it. Just got some problems. Squire. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it has a lot of problems. It definitely has to get fixed up a little bit, but, you know, it could be a lot worse. I like Evolve. I enjoy it. It's a fun game. If you have people to play with, you know, you can actually talk to. But if you don't, then you're in a little bit of trouble, because pugs are just not that great, unfortunately. In a game like that, anyway, you know. Let's see, who do I gotta level? Yeah, we'll get my squire. Ooh, combat. So, at this point, I'm kind of we're just doing a quick mission. Or I shouldn't say quick mission, we're just running a mission real quick. I can't talk today. We're just going to run this just so you can kind of see, especially how the Geyser Monk Lightning combo works. You can see on the top there, above my mana costs, and mana bars and things like that, is you'll see those icons kind of appear like that. What that's going to show you is when I get a successful combo, or I succeed in a feat, or something like that. And that's going to show you how much gold you get, extra XP you get, things like that. A lot of them I don't really know how to get them. I just kind of get them. So I'm sure there's a wiki out there that has all kinds of information as to what the combos are, what the feats are you can do mid-game to get the extra gold and XP, but I've been doing just fine without that knowledge. Just learn the basic ones, you know, the ones that are going to help me level a lot quicker. Die, pigman. Oh, now that you can actually see it, I know I had done the monk turrets before in the training room when they weren't actually going off because they don't register as enemies for some reason. But these ones will probably have the most durability damage done right now. So you can see, like right now, this is at 74%, 73%. The longer it is active, the more enemies it's hitting, the more the durability is going to go down substantially. Especially because these guys see a lot of traffic up here, so that's like why I was stressing before, is if you do place monk turrets anywhere, you really have to be paying attention to the durability of all your setups, because once those start going down, it's going to be really hard to build it back up. Alright, let's get my turrets going on over here. Forgot to build these guys last time. Repair these these guys. I'm gonna make sure I get those geyser traps repaired so that way they don't burn out on me. Alright, so now that we're actually in a game, there's a little bit more kind of things we can touch on. As far as upgrading, when to repair, when's a good time to repair, when's a good time to upgrade. Those are something you really are going to learn as you play, kind of seeing how your own defense goes and things like that. A general rule of thumb, especially if you're on like wave 2 or 3, is if it's a tier 1 turret and it's about to be destroyed or or something like that, it's usually a little more cost effective to just upgrade it instead of repair it. You'll see that upgrading from tier 1 to tier 2 is 50, tier 2 to tier 3 is 100, it goes up by 50 every time, so it can get a little more expensive, and it might shock you at first to be like, oh my gosh, I have to pay 50 mana to upgrade this thing. Let's say this guy's at 82, it's going to cost me 3 to repair it. You do that for 10 turrets, repair 10 level 1 turrets, you just spent 30 gold. One level 2 turret's better than 2 level 1 turrets, or even, depending on the character, 3 level 1 turrets. So it's definitely something you want to keep in mind. And what you also want to take into consideration, too, is your traffic flow of monsters. Where do you have a lot of monsters coming out? Between these two areas, where I have these 2 turrets, I have 45 and 40, I have almost 90 enemies coming out over here. So I want to make sure this gets upgraded substantially, so it can handle that volume of enemy coming out. So that's kind of when you're upgrading, you really got to kind of think down the road. Don't think, oh my gosh, it's about to be destroyed, I need to repair it or upgrade it right away. You want to kind of take the entire battlefield into consideration, especially when you're playing solo, because if you upgrade the wrong section, do the wrong thing, you can destroy your game really quick. Because if your turrets get overwhelmed, your hero typically can support, but it's not going to be the best solution to a faulty build. Even if you go DPS, because again, your turrets are always going to out DPS your character, pretty much every time. So, and a good point to bring up, especially about the boosting aura turrets, like I had shown you before, is this one I upgraded to tier 2 already, but as you can see, this guy is buffing 8 defenses, so it's going to use up that durability a lot quicker, especially as more enemies get through my lightning auras and these cannonball turrets start shooting. It's going to start decreasing that durability extremely fast. So we'll just save the rest of our mana here and go to the next combat phase. Another thing to note too is you can upgrade, sell, and repair during combat phase, because that's how your games are broken up. 5 waves. You have a build phase, and then you have a combat phase. When you try and build, repair, or sell in a combat phase, it's on a timer, so it's not instantaneous like it is in the build phase. So as you can see right here, I'll upgrade this turret. It's going to take a little bit of time to upgrade that turret, so it takes it out of the fight. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you have one turret that's fending off all these enemies and you go to repair it or upgrade it, it's going to stop shooting. So that's something you have to keep in mind when you're trying to upgrade your stuff in mid-battle. That's usually why if it starts going down during the fight, your best bet's just to repair it, because upgrading is going to take it out of the fight. Repairing, not so much. But it's definitely something you want to keep in mind, because you can only do one action at a time. So if I'm repairing a turret, I can't do anything. I can still run around and fight enemies and use my hero abilities, but I can't upgrade, repair, or anything else. So you definitely don't want to get yourself stuck in a situation. I only repair turrets if it's literally about to go down and there's like a big wave of enemies coming. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of repairing something when there's like 2 enemies left and there's nobody even in that lane. So that's kind of a waste of mana. Even if it's only 5, 6, 10 mana, depending on how damaged it is, it's still not something you don't want to waste mana. You only get so much. Those chests you see at the beginning that I opened up and got all that extreme amount of mana, you get less and less mana every round. So the monsters will drop mana, they'll drop hero mana for your abilities and things like that. So you want to make sure you get all that. Is Uffen is Pusibu. Let's see how these guys are doing. 115, 112, 96, 26. Upgrade these guys, repair these guys. We're not going to upgrade them yet. Generally, if it's a monk turret and it's over 100%, don't worry about repairing it. It'll last the next round. Like 99, I'm not going to bother repairing that. My geyser turrets, I'm definitely going to repair, make sure they're up to snuff, because I'm not going to really be upgrading them too much. 108, 93, I'll upgrade you. You're tier 3, you're tier 3. I want to try and get all my lightning ores to tier 2 to combat. Like, this guy's pretty damaged. I'm gonna upgrade this guy. Upgrade you. Upgrade you. I only got 170 mana left. I don't think I've upgraded you. Or see, like, this guy's at 55. Alright, it's gonna cost me 7 to repair him, which will put a tier 1. I'm coming up on wave 3, keep that in mind. But if I repair him, it's still a tier 1 turret. So as the enemies get stronger, and he has to sit here and do more and more damage to these enemies before they die, the durability is just gonna sink, and he's gonna get destroyed. So we're just gonna upgrade, because he'll last a lot longer. There we go. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're trying to level your characters, again, is the character you currently have active during the combat phase. You can't change your characters during the combat phase. So the character you have out and active is the only one that's going to get experience. I've done a few tests. Nothing in your hero deck other than your active hero is going to get experience for that particular wave. So you'll kind of want to jump in between characters. Trying to keep them all the same, approximately the same level, can be kind of annoying. Especially because if one gets over-leveled, you know, you won't be able to use them on a lower level game. So what you just saw, that little question mark icon that just came on the screen, what that tells you is that it's not a boss, so to speak. It's more of a tough enemy. It's an enemy that is much stronger than your traditional enemy. I think he's, what, level 24? Yeah, so he's level 24, and the max hero level right now is only 25. So that's a tough enemy on the field right now. Good thing, though, that the AI is not too bright. So what I can do is actually just milk him, and I can just kite him to stay in these lightning horror turrets, so he just keeps taking damage. That's something they definitely should fix, is the AI. So as you can see here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to see, now that he's wet and taking lightning damage, it's a perfect example of that combo system in play. Because he's soaking wet and he's getting struck by lightning, he's going to take a lot more damage, and you're going to see that nice stun effect going on. So that's definitely something that's really cool with this combo system that I really, really like. Block. So right now I got him stuck. He's got the stun going on, he's taking constant DPS, trying to hit me, for some reason he can't. And we're just gonna finish him off. And he's done. But that took a lot of health out of my geyser turret. Or a lot of durability out of that bad boy, so we definitely want to repair him. The reason you don't see me upgrading the geyser turrets too much is because they're not like a damage dealing turret. Yeah, upgrading them will increase the longevity of them, will give them more charges and things like that. But realistically, all they're doing is going once, and then the lightning turrets are doing all the work. So I want to make sure my lightning turrets are upgraded, not so much my geyser turrets. Alright, now here we are at the build phase. Give me my mana. Alright, so now it's time to upgrade you guys to tier 3. You're still at 100, you're good. Now that we're coming into the much more difficult section, you can see like on the spawn points, like on the east dock, you can see how it's a green bar. Typically what that means is it's going to be a pretty casual enemies coming out there, just standard enemies, nothing too crazy. Your purple means it's going to be a little bit more difficult, either by just sheer enemy volume or the types of enemies that are going to be coming out there. And then when you have like something like an exclamation point, that tells you that a really tough enemy's coming out. Typically a boss will be coming out that side. So it's definitely something, again, you want to pay attention to that, because if you have, a weak lane that has like maybe 2 or 3 turrets in it, and you have a boss coming out that lane, you got to know that, that your defenses are probably going to get run over by that guy. So again, that's something you want to pay attention to. Situational awareness in any turret defense game is pretty flippin' important. Upgrade, repair. And we'll just check these. Sometimes I always forget to check these guys back here, but I think I already did. No, not really. And we'll check you. And why not? We got enough mana. We'll upgrade you. Not yet. Not enough. Not enough mana. Alright. So now we're just going to kind of sit back, let our turrets there do some work. So I noticed we got a few Shady Pro. Welcome to the stream. How are we all doing today? If you guys do have any questions about Dungeon Defenders 2, if you've never played the game, maybe are questioning purchasing it, right now, Dungeon Defenders 2 is only in early access on Steam, so you basically have to pay to play it right now. It is going to be a free-to-play game when it comes out. I do not have an ETA on the release date. They're still in pre-alpha, not even in the beta stage yet, so it's going to be a while. I would give it, say, at least a year or two. Well, I'd give it, say, at least a year before the game's in a releasable build. This is only the first foundation of the game. They're coming out with a second foundation. Good. I'm really glad to hear that, Zacho, because that makes me. That's why I do this, helping out new players, things like that. If you have any questions, you can let me know. You can even hit me up on Steam if you want. I'm pretty sure my Steam is linked in my my Twitch channel there, but if not, it's just Dagnome on Steam. Hit me up if you have any questions. I don't mind answering them. I'm by no means like a fantastic DD2 player, but I just played a lot of DD1, so these concepts are pretty familiar to me. What we'll probably do is we'll start going over enemies here in a little bit. Probably after this fight, I'll see if I can't find a way to look at the enemy codexes, so we can kind of go over what enemies are your bigger threats when you're in a match. You'll kind of see, as you play through the campaign for the first time, it'll tell you, like, enemies that are incoming, new enemies you face. It'll tell you, you'll get a big screen, it'll show you what kind of enemy they are, whether they're like a support, ranged, melee, basically what their impact is on your defenses. So that's definitely something worth covering, because it's easy to forget, especially if you're new to the game and have not experienced these guys yet. It's just kind of nice going in knowing what you're up against. So, all right. So right now we're on wave 5 of 5. You can't really see it on my stream because of my banner there, and I apologize for that. At the top right, you're going to see what wave you're on and the amount of enemies you have total for that wave. So right now we're at 269. Kind of looks like 209 when you're looking at it from there. In your top left, you obviously have your character, health bar, things like that. So that's all you're missing up top. Nothing too crazy going on there. More mana. Alright. So now that we're on wave 5, we want to make sure everything is up to snuff, everything's repaired, because this is going to be a tough wave. So, with this particular side over here, the gazebo tower, alright? This is kind of what I was referencing earlier. You can see it's now red. The little bar underneath, that's red. When you look at the number next to it, the gazebo tower says 47. That obviously tells you that there are 47 total enemies coming out this spawn point. But because of the quality of enemy that's coming out here, that's what makes this lane dangerous. That's why you see that red bar there, because there's a boss coming out this lane. So that's, one thing, again, when you're building your defenses, you kind of want to keep in mind, as you get in like free play mode, it's going to vary what monsters come out what lane. So you can't just say, oh, all the monsters are going to come out this lane. You can kind of, in general, plan for it. Like, if you have 2 or 3 lanes that converge on one spot, there's obviously going to be a lot of activity there. So you want to build a lot of defenses there. But you know, something like this, it could be like 10 enemies, but have a boss come out, and that could easily destroy a weak lane. So you want to pay attention to that. And even over here, over at the east dock, even though there's no boss coming out, there's still 80 enemies coming out this one spawn point. So that's why you kind of see that orange bar. That just kind of is a quick color indicator of the difficulty of that lane. It's either going to be by type of enemy or just sheer volume of the enemy. The rest of them are green because they're all regular enemies with like 40 or so guys coming out. So not a big deal. Gonna repair all this stuff. Ba-na-ma-now. Ba-na-ma-now. Just make sure all this stuff down here is repaired all the way. Especially this guy. No, well. That boost turret's doing really well. And there's no flying guys. So one thing to keep in mind too, a lot of people miss it, especially if you're new to this kind of game, haven't done a lot of played Dungeon Defenders 1 at all, is you can see up there, you see the gazebo skies. It'll tell you next to it that that's a air lane. That means only air units are going to come through that lane. But it's really easy to miss that kind of light purple, or yeah, I'd say, well, dark blue, light purple kind of color. But it's really easy to miss that lane indicator. So that's, that's telling me these guys are going to fly right over this and go straight for the main kind of core here. One thing I should touch on real quick before I finish this while I'm actually in the map is on your mini-map on the top right, you'll see the two big gold shields. Those are your main cores. If those get if one of those gets destroyed, or your single main core gets destroyed, boom, that's all she wrote. That's the end of the match. You lose. These little gray shields that you see, these are what are called sub-cores. What they are is if the enemy is able to destroy that, and this, I really should have said this at the beginning. Before you start placing turrets, look at your map, look at the sub-cores, see if there are any on there. You want to defend the sub-cores, because if the enemies destroy the sub-cores, let's say you build up this whole defense, you're protecting your main core, you're like, nothing's getting through this. What's going to happen, because you neglected your sub-cores, is the enemy's going to come in, destroy the sub-cores, and now you have 2 or 3 extra lanes of enemies coming at you. So the game's going to get increasingly more difficult the more sub-cores that you let fall. So, like, let's say this sub-core was to fall, that means this is going to open up this lane right here for more enemies to come at me. So you're going to have another lane and more enemies, which just kind of in general makes it more difficult. So it's definitely something you want to keep in mind. Usually what I'll do, and this is a great tip for newer guys, walk the map. So if you see a sub-core, follow the purple line that's going to go through that sub-core and build in front of it. So that way you have defenses around your sub-cores and that whole lane. So just be cognizant of that when you are playing through the campaign or even free play mode. A lot of people don't care about subcores, especially on like this map. You'll see a lot of the grinders, people playing the incursions. They'll let this fall. They don't care about this one extra lane. It's not really that impactful. Just because this particular map, you can build a lot of defenses right here in the middle because everything converges here. So, but on other maps, you want to be very cognizant of those subcores. I totally forgot what I was doing. Oh yes, upgrading. And I'm stuck in the puddle. I'm stuck in the pond, I'm stuck in the pond. I'm gonna upgrade you to tier 5, you to tier 5. Definitely fix you guys up. Definitely repair you. I guess one other thing I should mention is below my minimap, you can see that castle with the fraction bar in it. The 280 out of 1200. What you're going to see there, that's telling you the maximum amount of turret space you have. So it's basically your build kind of, your build limit. Every time you build a turret, depending on the cost of the turret, is going to take away from that limit. So I have 280 left of build space. If I put another cannon turret down, you can see that goes down to 250. If I build a, my 8 ability, the little spiky, or not the spiky, the little decoy guys, the dummy guys, it's going to go down to 230. So that's going to decrease depending on the cost of the turrets that you're placing. So you could place a lot of, these archer turrets, which cost 50 apiece, but you're going to chew through your defense cap pretty quick. So it's, I did not want to upgrade those. So that's something, you want to just kind of be cognizant of that when you are building, planning your building, things like that. I mean, in general, this is not a very difficult game. Um, it's just if you've never played this kind of game, it can be a little bit overwhelming at points. Um, I think I already upgraded you guys, and we'll upgrade you both to tier 4. Usually what I like to do is I like to keep between 20 and 30 extra mana, just so I have something to repair with, just in case, you know, the worst happens. Um, you know, I'm not totally stranded and all my turrets just start dying around me. Some maps you won't be able to do that, especially the beginning maps, because they basically ration you. Here's X mana, you're going to basically use it all up to defend 3 lanes, you know. I just want to give a quick, while I'm waiting for this boss to come out, I'm just going to give a quick shout out. The music you're listening to right now, this is actually from Monstercat's Twitch channel. Because of the new policies and regulations on Twitch, you can't play royalty music. So what Monstercat has done is he's put a channel together where streamers can have some nice music in the background that's royalty free. I'm not going to worry about my stream getting muted or anything like that. So a big thank you to Monstercat for putting that stream up. Because I like listening to music while I play. It's nice to have it in the background, makes it a little bit more interesting. Alright, so this is my boss here, level 21 Ogre. He's going to try and throw his spit on me. Alright. Now, the thing with the bosses, these guys are tough. They do not go down easy, so you really got to be cognizant of them, because if you don't pay attention to a boss, he will destroy your defenses. You could have the best setup in the world, but if you're not paying attention, he's going to tear through it. That's where, like, the monk turrets are pretty interesting, because the enemies don't attack the turrets directly. They're all durability based. They're a little bit better against bosses if you can keep the boss inside of those AoEs. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. That's like how he died so quick, because, you know, these turrets took a pretty substantial hit, durability-wise, but they were just constantly doing damage to him. So that's why the monks are great. If he had, like, cannonball turrets up there, he's just going to smash through them, which is kind of sad, because it's never fun to see your defenses get crushed by one enemy. Die, pig face. Victory! So, when you do complete a map on a victory, you're going to get a chest. The chests are kind of randomly generated. It can be either a common item, a rare item, a purple item, that kind of thing. So let's see, this time we got a green chest. There is a small chance that when you open up a chest, it's going to upgrade itself to another chest. So if we open them, boop, nope, it stayed a green chest. So, it happens. So it's going to give me a green item, which is boring, because green is silly. Alright. So that was, you know, kind of like a basic gameplay. This, again, this was free mode, so you're not going to be able to jump right into this kind of map. You're going to have to actually play, this is like the second to last level in the campaign. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take a quick break. Just kind of go get myself set up for the next part of the stream here. What we're going to be covering next is I'm going to try to see if I can't look at the codexes for the monsters, see if those are in yet. Kind of go over some of the monsters real quick, and we're going to go over the upgrading system. So two pretty important. Well, the upgrading system is pretty important to know, especially if, you know, Zacho, like, you know, you're new to the game, you probably won't know much about the upgrading system. So stick around for that. I'll be right back here in a few minutes. We'll be set up for the next part of the stream here, guys. Alright, we are back. Alright, so, sorry about the quick break, guys. Alright, so what we're going to go over now, I wasn't able to find anything enemy related as far as like codexes for them. So that's just one of the things that we're going to kind of have to cover. When when I play another match, I can kind of start going over the enemies a little bit. But right now, what I kind of want to focus on is just we'll kind of do a quick tour of the tavern and the upgrading system, because those are pretty important stuff. So we'll start up here. This is your hero manager. This is where you're going to select what heroes are in your hero deck, obviously. Create new heroes once they add more slots in. There are two more characters that they're going to be, at least two more characters that are going to be introduced to the game as time goes on. So this is where you can swap out your heroes, things like that. Again, level is pretty important. You want to have your heroes relatively close in level, so that way you can actually play a map that you're looking to play here. This is Colonel Archibald. What he is, he's your daily quest kind of guy. So what his function is you have two options for daily quests, as the system is right now. You can pick this one, depending on which one you think is easier for you to accomplish. Right now, it's all like the same XP rewards, things like that. So you might as well just pick one, get the extra experience for that character in the 500 gold or whatever it is. Obviously, when you're in a social tavern, you don't see the war table. You see the recruiter here. That's the matchmaking system. When you're in a tavern, the war table is where you select your map. Depending on what game mode you're either in campaign mode, you're in free play mode, that kind of thing. So you'll see what maps are available to you depending on what game mode you are in. If we go down the stairs here, you have the barkeep right here. He's just a bug reporter. That's his function right now. You talk to him, it'll bring you to a Steam page. You report bugs that way. Over here we have our weapon seller, which the weapons that he sells are not that great. They're talking about putting in weapons you would actually want to purchase from him, because right now it's basically just very basic greens and grays and common items, nothing too special. You're going to find better loot than you can buy in the stores, so I would advise you not to waste your money in the stores as they are right now, because at 3,000 gold, that's a lot of money, and these things really aren't that great. You really want to save the purples and the legendaries and the blues. Those are like your best ones. This section over here, this is where they're eventually going to put in the costume system. Like I said, it is going to be a free-to-play game. They're going to use the free-to-play model, so there will be some cosmetic things you can buy. Trendy Entertainment is very adamant, at least so they're saying on the dev streams, that anything you can buy with real money is not going to affect gameplay. You won't be able to buy weapons. You're not going to be able to buy stat boosts. You're not going to be able to buy, things that are going to affect character ability to play the game. But they will have cosmetics. You can kind of see here, these are just samples of costumes, for the Huntress, the Monk, the Ninja Monk. That's what I'm calling that. But, so that'll be cool, just to spice it up, give you a little customization of what your character looks like and things like that. This over here, this is your upgrade center. I'm trying to drink water while I'm playing, so I don't get too parched. So this is Lily's upgrade shop. So how the upgrading works in DD2 is basically what you're going to do is you're going to take. I'm trying to find just a decent weapon or decent anything that I want to upgrade. Defense health, defense speed, blah blah blah, blee blee blee. There we go, we'll upgrade this thing. What you want to do when you're upgrading, first you put an item that you want to upgrade in the middle. And then you can see up here that you have the available points, defense power, defense hero health. So what you need to do is actually use other items from your inventory or your temporary bag or whatever to upgrade this item. Basically, it's almost like an experience system for your items. So the lower quality item you meld into the item you're trying to upgrade, the less experience you're going to get for it. If I put like a yellow item in here, it's not going to tell you how much experience you're going to get for it. But if I do an upgrade, we'll just do this one for example. I'm going to upgrade this. The cost is going to change depending on what items you're putting in there. So just so you can see a comparison, I put a yellow item in there, it's 300 gold. I put a green item in there, it's now 700 gold, because I'm getting more experience for using a green item. So I use this yellow item. Obviously it succeeds, because I don't know why it would fail. If it failed, she's not very good at her job. So you can see it kind of spins it into it, boom. We got 40 XP. We got 54, so we got 94 experience for a yellow item. That's not a whole lot. That's like one level. And this can be upgraded up to 21 times. So now what we're going to do, and you kind of see that, we're just going to take these junk items. And I suppose I'd explain the temporary bag while I have it open. This temporary item bag, what it is a lot of times your items that you leave on the ground, that you don't pick up at the end of a match or something like that, if you forgot to pick something up, or you just don't have any inventory space for it, if all your bags are filled up, they're going to go in this temporary item bag. This item bag gets dumped out, or clears out every so often. So like as you can see, this item only has 21 hours and 12 minutes left. If I don't do something with it in that time frame, either sell it, move it into my permanent bags, upgrade with it, it's just going to disappear. The bag's going to empty out, it's gone. It basically does it once every day and a half, depending on when you pick the item up. So you can see the timer changes for all these items, and all these are on the same timer as well. So every 2 days. Once you pick up an item, every 2 days it's going to reset. So what we're going to upgrade this here. I'm just going to skip the animation here so you don't have to look at that again. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, there we go. So now we're up to 9 of 21 after all that experience got incorporated in. So as you can see now we have a substantial amount of points. I have 8 points available to upgrade this item. Basically, its main stats are defense power and hero health. It has some minor stats you can read in there, increase in aura radius, increase the boost aura defense damage boost, that kind of thing. So it's not this is probably much more of a monk medallion than a squire medallion, but I'm not too really concerned with items right now or builds because I'm going to worry about that more at level 25 when I reach the cap. But there is the cap with Foundation 2, but we'll find out. That's future stream anyway. So what we're going to do, we have 8 points. We can disperse it between the 2 primary stats, defense power or hero health. For now, I'm just going to put it all in defense power. So you can see as I put 1 point into it, it's going to upgrade by 2 points. So for every 1 point you put into a main stat, you get 2 into it. So we'll just upgrade that. So now I have 200 defense power and 29 hero health. That's basically how your upgrade system works. One thing I want to point out though is let's say I'm upgrading and I'm just kind of throwing stuff in here. I'm not really paying attention, yada yada yada. And let's say I accidentally throw in my legendary item, all right, and I hit upgrade. It is going to give you a warning screen that if you put in a blue or better, it will tell you epic or better items can be used as an ingredient. Continue with upgrade. It'll make sure you actually want to use that as a upgrade item. Make sure you pay attention to that because you do not want to waste. Actually, I don't know, do blues count? Yeah, so blues count as well. So anything blue, purple, or orange, you're going to get this message. And that's really nice because if you're not paying attention, you're just dumping stuff in there because you want to upgrade, you get a little upgrade crazy, you might destroy something you really want. So it's really nice that they do that, and that way you're aware of it. So if you see that, double check your items, make sure you're not putting in anything you actually want to keep. Alright, so that is your upgrade system. I wouldn't recommend upgrading anything until you reach level 20, 23 or above. Until you start finding level 20 plus items, at least right now, because if you upgrade a level 10 item all the way, you're probably going to find something that's better than that. That can upgrade to 20, 30 levels within a map or two. So, when you're running through the campaign, don't worry about upgrading items. That's just my recommendation. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. Save your gold for buying bags. while we're talking about bags, we'll go ahead and take a look at the bag system real quick, the inventory system in general. So, you go to your inventory. Again, we already talked about the temporary bag, so you kind of know what that is. It has a description on it if you hover above it. You see I have these 3 bags here. These are what they refer to as premium bags. Your basic, probably like what you have, Zacho, right now, is just these 3 bags right here. A purple, a brown, and a blue bag. Those are your standard bags. They have, I think, like 15 item slots or something like that. There, maybe it's 12. 18. They have 18 item slots. So you have a total of 54 inventory space at the start of the game. Substantial amount, and when you're going through the campaign, that's typically plenty. Save all your gold, though, because to buy the click this little lock here, and you can buy more space, more inventory space. The standard bags are pretty cheap, so they're very appealing for people to just say, "Oh, I need more bags. I'm just gonna buy some standard bags." Save up for the premiums. There are 30 slots, which right when you first see them side by side, you're thinking, well, I'm paying a lot more and I'm not getting as much out of it. But you can rename the bags, pick the icons, which is nice. It's nothing crazy. But just having the premium bags with 30 slots, it adds a lot. Like, I have an additional 90 slots just from buying these bags. I would recommend buying only premium bags until they get to a ridiculous price like this. I only bought 3 of them. The first one I think was 50,000, and then it was like 150,000, then it was like 200 something thousand. But now it's 400,000, which is that's a lot of gold. That's a lot of grinding, and I'm probably going to stop with the 3 bags for now. But I have enough inventory space, so I don't really need to worry about selling anything. I know with Foundation 2, they are actually adding in a sell all button for a bag. So right now, the sell mode, you have to go into sell mode, select the items you want to sell. They'll go red. It's just a lot of clicking. If I want to sell the entire bag, confirm, get the money, have to open up a new, it's a little tedious to do all that. So having a sell all button is going to be great, because I can just open up a bag, sell everything in there, my trash bag, and be done. This show equipable category you got here, what this is actually going to do is it's going to highlight everything you can equip. So you kind of see here the bow. Obviously, a squire cannot equip a bow. So if I check off show equipable, it's going to darken those out. So that way, when I'm looking through my inventory, I don't have to worry about either selling something I can equip or trying to equip something I can't. It's just kind of basic, common stuff. Let's look at item comparison, kind of while we're in the inventory system. So right now, down here is everything you have equipped: your helmet, your chest plate, your boots, your gloves, your weapon, in the squire's case, the sword and shield, and your relic here. As far as item comparison, if I hover over an item, what it's going to do is show me on the left what I have equipped right now. Hello, Zaxxon, how you doing? On the right, it's going to show me what I have, what I'm looking at, what I'm comparing it to. It shows you everything you need to know. The big thing you want to kind of think about is the difference if equipped. Now, this gives you very broad strokes, because it doesn't necessarily tell you everything you need to know. It'll tell you the difference between your base stats, your hero damage, depending on what the secondary